Good morning. Happy Sabbath. It's a beautiful day, and we would love to start this part of our Sabbath school this morning with just a short song. It actually ties in because this is a special feature this morning of all different missions that are happening in this valley, being able to share a little bit about what's going on. And so the focus for the Sabbath school time is mission, and we are his hands to touch the world around us. So we would like to sing that song with you this morning to get ourselves warmed up for the service of serving one more.
We are his hands to touch the world around us. We are his feet to go where he may lead. We are his love burning in the darkness. We are his love shining in the night. We are his eyes to see the need in others. We are his voice to tell of his return. And we are his love burning in the darkness. We are his love shining in the night.
Good morning and happy Sabbath. Please bow your heads with me for prayer. Dear God, thank you so much for this beautiful morning outside and inside as well, as we have a chance to spend time together, combined with multiple churches, and just worship you together. Be with us throughout this day and help us to focus on you. In your name we pray, amen.
Good morning. As we continue this highlight weekend, Camp Meeting 2026 right here in Wenatchee. Welcome each one of you that are here in person and those of you that are online as well. Considering Jesus. I can't think of a better theme for this weekend. And as you think about service, that's why we serve, because we love Jesus. And so we have several ministries here this morning, local ministries that are making an impact, some in the local area, some even throughout the world, but locally driven ministries. So we're thankful to have Pastor Richie Brower here to lead out in this time. And thank you for doing that.
Well, good morning, everyone. Glad you're here. My name is Richie Brower. I am the Director for Community Engagement for Upper Columbia Conference, and I tell people I have the best job in the world. I get to work with churches and schools all across our conference, helping them get into their communities and serve their neighbors in new and meaningful ways. And I'm super excited because today, our whole Sabbath school time is just going to be spent hearing from people here in the Wenatchee Valley area, talking about amazing things that God is using his church to do to serve this community, this valley in practical ways. So I want to start out by inviting Renee to come up and talk about Journey to Bethlehem, something that's been going on here for quite a while. And Renee, we're going to give you a microphone, which is always a dangerous thing to do.
Don't worry, I won't sing.
But I'm not leaving, so go ahead. The time is yours. Tell us about Journey to Bethlehem.
Well, I think everyone here is pretty familiar with Journey to Bethlehem, but it is a production that we do every December to, hello?
Yeah.
We can. We're all right. That we present the birth of Christ. It is free to the community. We started this in 2010. And so this will be our 17th year. However, we have had to skip things here and there. So it will be actually our 13th production of Journey to Bethlehem. So we have made some changes. We spent the last 2 years doing some changes to help make it sustainable. And streamlined things a little bit. So we went down from 4 nights to 3 nights. But I do have, we had over 2,600 people go through this last year, and that was 95% of what our planned capacity was. So we're pretty excited about that. I want to thank you. If I'm going to stand up here and talk about Journey to Bethlehem, I cannot do that without thanking each and every church that has financially supported this. It takes quite a bit to put on a production like this every year, as well as we need to constantly be updating and repairing and things like that. So I want to thank you for that support. But also, this cannot be done without the time and the energy that you members put into this. From fixing soups so that the cast has dinner, to walking security in the parking lot and driving the shuttle bus, to those who make and repair and costume our cast. We have, I don't know exact numbers, but we have well over 200 positions that we cast every year in the village, and closer to 300 people support that it takes to put this on every year. By next year, I'm going to have exact numbers, but we got into the ballpark this year. Now, of course, some people are doing multiple jobs, but when I say it takes 300 support people to pull this off, that is still hours and energy. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love this project because, and it is part of our mission in Journey to Bethlehem, it is an opportunity for us to come together as Seventh-day Adventist churches in this valley and work together on a project that serves our community. And as you can see from some of the comment cards that we have had over, it has an impact. We have grandparents who can bring their grandchildren because their kids don't take them to church. And, this has an impact. And it's not just, for kicks and giggles.
That's right.
Although we have plenty of those while we're doing it. But anyway, so we are going to do it again this year. And December 3, 4, and 5, it's a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And going down to the 3 days, I also want to comment that it really helped us to be able to work and be more respectful to the school in their time and their facility by having that Sunday afterwards that we can go in there and clean and get everything back ready for school. On Monday meant we didn't have to stay until 2 o'clock in the morning Sunday night. And as I'm getting older, I appreciate that change so much. So anyway, I thank you again from the bottom of my heart. We cannot do this without you.
So Renee, thank you. And the notes are amazing on screen. So out of the 13 seasons that you've been producing Journey to Bethlehem, how many of those have you been lead on that?
I have only been the director. This will be my third season. We started this under the incredible leadership of Glenn Fisher.
Okay.
We could not be where we are today without Glenn Fisher.
Yeah, amazing. I directed for one whole season, Journey to the Cross in Spokane, and so I have a sense you need a solid director and a lot of men with beards.
And a lot of men with beards.
Thank you so much. And let me ask one more question before I let you go. Out of the last few years that you've been leading and participating for a lot of years, sounds like, what's the most meaningful, why? What's your why? Why do you keep doing this? That's a lot of work. Why are you still investing?
I think that answer is going to be different for everyone who participates. And because I started out in 2010 working in costumes, so I have always been a part of the crew, not the cast. And so I have to say, it is coming together with the church members and coming together with community members that want to participate,
Yeah.
and just building friendships and working together. There is something about being a piece of a larger picture. And for me personally, I love that. I want to be a piece of a larger picture.
Awesome. I think a lot of us do. Thank you so much for your time and commitment and sharing about Journey to Bethlehem. Appreciate it. Up next, we have Karen with After the Storm Care. I've got their sticker right here that I snuck off their table this morning. They've got more for you and a lot of good information. So, Karen, would you just tell us about, I think you've got a presentation, share about After the Storm
Sure.
Care.
Do you mind if I use the podium?
Please, I will move over here. We'll share.
Can I use this microphone?
If you would rather. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's get it to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy Sabbath. My name is Karen Fisher, like you said. Before I tell you about After the Storm Care, make sure my clicker is working. Oh, it's there. All right. Go back. Okay. All right. Before I share too much about After the Storm Care, I like to read a quote from Prophets and Kings, page 277. She wrote, "The time is at hand when there will be sorrow in the world that no human balm can heal. The Spirit of God is being withdrawn. Disasters by sea and by land follow one another in quick succession. How frequently we hear of earthquakes and tornadoes, of destruction by fire and flood, with great loss of life and property. Apparently, these calamities are capricious outbreaks of disorganized, unregulated forces of nature, wholly beyond the control of man. But in them all, God's purpose may be read. They are among the agencies by which He seeks to arouse men and women to a sense of their danger, and that would be to their eternal danger, their spiritual danger. So that is why After the Storm Care exists. We're a nonprofit ministry that reaches out to people who have been affected by natural disasters in the states of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, especially those who are displaced from their homes. We are run by volunteers only and run on the donations of, or we're donor supported. We've only been in existence a little over a year, but even so, we've been busy. So I'd like to share a few examples of things we've done. Let's see if we can get that going. It worked a minute ago. Go ahead and do the next slide, Jerry Lynn. Oh, okay. Last August, there was a fire in Athol, Idaho, called the Sunset Fire. This is Rick. He and Isabel lost their home, lost his machine shop, which was his form of employment, and they just lost everything as a fire came through their property. Really, I think he only left with his wallet and a little bag of money, and she wasn't home at the time. So that's how how fast the fire came through. If you'd like to learn more about their story, you can visit our website, and there's a blog where they've written their story up for us to share. This is another picture of their property. And in September, so it was just a few weeks after the fire, Glenn and I went up to Athol, Idaho, and met them. We were able to give them our emergency backpack kits and hear their story and pray with them. We are still in contact with them, which is such a blessing. Also, the Athol, Idaho church has reached out to them with a care basket. And that's one part of our mission as well, is to connect the area Adventist churches with those in need. So last December, do you remember the atmospheric river and the Pineapple Express that came through? And it hit Western Washington especially hard. This is a picture of a neighborhood in Cedral Woolley, and we went up there to Cedral Woolley and we set up in a parking lot in front of a grocery store, and we were able to give out the emergency care kits and children's clothes and hats and blankets. One of the families that we met, or one gal that we met, Summer, this is actually her neighborhood. She shared this picture with us. And this is a picture of inside her home. You can see the TV to the right there, mounted on the wall, and the wood stove kind of back behind it. They had probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet of water in their house. Her husband also, his place of employment was flooded too, so they were without employment for a while. And again, we contacted a church that was close, the Burlington Seventh-day Adventist Church, and they contacted all the people that we had ministered to and invited them to a free dental clinic at their church. A couple months later, in February, we went to Sumas, Washington, also affected by that flooding in December. And they're located just south of the Canadian border. The Nooksack River overflowed. Many people still 2 months later displaced from their home. And here we are giving them emergency care kits, clothes, and blankets. And we are so grateful for God's Closet. They provide us with things that they can't use, like the blankets and hats and things. So we just pass on those good things to the people that need them. And here's a woman there at Sumas also getting some clothes. So far, we have shared financial assistance with with 57 households, and that helps them with their immediate needs when they are displaced right after a natural disaster. And we've shared over 135 emergency care kits. So this was last year, right after camp meeting, the Sunday after, where we had help putting together hygiene kits and first aid kits and stuffing backpacks. We'll be doing that tomorrow morning at 9:30 in the Family Life Center. You are invited. We'd love to have you come and help us put these kits together so we can replenish our emergency care kits. And I will just wrap up by saying that out in the foyer, there's a table. And if you'd like to receive updates for our ministry, then if you would give us your name and email address so we can kind of keep you updated. There's also go bag checklists, and those will help you to prepare in case you ever have to leave your home in an emergency. You know, you have things ready to go. And to think that none of us, or that we're all immune to something happening is a dangerous thought, really. Just last Sunday, I was on a boat going up to Stehekin, and I met a woman who lives in Stehekin. She's lived there for 40 years. No, she's not on the river. She's not on the lake. She has no creek, no stream going through her property. Yet one morning in December, she woke up, looked out her second floor bedroom window and saw her house was surrounded by water. And by the time she left that morning, she had 2 feet of water in her home. She is still displaced today as they are doing the repairs on her home. And what had happened, I think she said a creek, but a water source up in the mountains above them overflowed, and the water came down and surrounded her house. So pick up a go bag checklist. And then one more thing, we're having a fundraiser right now, current fundraiser, and there's information out on the table too if you'd like to help us out with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to go with this mic. Thank you, Karen. I have one question for you. If you can give me the short version, because I'm guessing this is a long answer that I'm going to ask, but I want to hear, what was it that prompted you and your husband to say, we need to do something? There's got to be a story here.
There is a story. In fact, it's written up on one of the blogs on our website as well. But it's probably been almost 3 years ago now. Some of you remember the wildfires that went through Lahaina in Hawaii, or on Maui. And Glenn and I, Glenn took me to Maui 2 times. One was our first year anniversary, wedding anniversary, and then a year later, and really fell in love with it there, I did. But anyway, a huge fire, a lot of people lost their lives even, and their homes and businesses. And it just really stirred me, I guess. And it was probably about a year later, I started praying and asking God to give us a ministry, Glenn and I, that we could do together. And we were just moved to to put our money into a ministry instead of taking the vacations that we had planned. And so I guess that was it in a nutshell.
That's a very great summary. Thank you for sharing that. I
Thank
love your
you.
heart, love what you're doing. Fantastic. And, you know, if you live in the Wenatchee area and you're not paying attention to disaster, one thing that I have noted is that there hasn't been a fire season as long as I've been paying attention that didn't include a fire in this area. So we should all be paying attention and asking how we can help. And right now, fire season is already kicking off. We've had multiple fires within our conference territory already this season. Next up, I'm going to invite two young people to come up and talk about a project that I just love, Samaritan's Purse. Come on up, you two. So this is Sophie and Carson, and they're going to talk about Samaritan's Purse. And if you're not, I'm going to give you guys this. Remember what we talked about? You got to get that up close to your mouth. So I'm going to take this one over here. So you'll have to share. Can you two do that? Okay, so talk to us. First of all, I should get out my questions, so I'm asking you questions you're prepared for, huh? We'll do that. So why don't you start off with what is Operation Christmas Child and what is a shoebox gift, Carson?
Well, Operation Christmas Child is works with under Samaritan's Purse, and they're an organization that shares the good news around the world. And when they usually do it to kids, and after they are done telling the story, they then say, "We have a gift for you," and then they'll bring out the shoe boxes. And God usually works and gives the kids what they wanted or what they needed, and it's very cool how it works out.
I love it. So Sophie, I heard that your church has a special packing night event. What happens during that?
So at that event, some people will make the boxes, and then the other people will grab the boxes and fill them up with the toys according to the age groups and gender, and then we'll put it in a pile.
And Sophie, I'm watching the video, the cart with big boxes going out. Now that's not the boxes you're packing. Your boxes are in these big boxes, right?
Yes.
All right. So you're packing shoe boxes and then you stack a bunch of them into these bigger boxes. Okay. All right. Let's see. Sophie, another question for you. What are some of the different things people do to help get the shoe boxes ready?
So for our church, we'll set out a big box out in the front, and people go and buy things from the store and then put it in the box. So then at the night that we pack the boxes, we have enough for a lot of boxes.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, a lot of shopping involved in this. My kids have been involved because our church school participates and they take the whole school and go to Walmart or wherever and go shopping. So Carson, before the big packing event, they show a video. What do you remember from the video? What does it show that has meant something to you?
So the video is really cool. It's basically when they're talking to the kids, and they have this discipleship program they offer them, and then they tell them about Jesus, how he died for them, and then they give out the gifts, and it's just really cool because they haven't experienced a lot of joy in their life, probably natural disasters and stuff, and it's really cool to see their expressions when they open up that box. It's really cool.
Yeah, love it. I've been impacted by that video. I think the thing that has really struck me is these packages are going to kids who are over the moon excited to get a pencil or a set of crayons. Like it kind of flips a switch, at least in my heart, that there's very different realities out there than ours. So Sophie, what do you do when people come to drop their boxes here at the church? What's your job?
So there's a lot of different things. It's not like this person has this job. We do a lot of things. So once a cart pulls up, we'll go out there with carts and load the boxes onto the carts, bring them inside and load them onto tables. And then the people who are working on the tables load them into the bigger boxes. And then somebody will move the bigger boxes over to the piles. And then we'll start loading the semi-truck at the end.
That's a lot of work. There's a lot involved in this, isn't there? And you guys are like experts. You got it ready to go. So Carson, what happens on that big day when people drop their boxes off here at the church? How long does it take and what happens during that event?
So it depends. Some individuals, they bring 5 shoe boxes. Some church groups will bring hundreds and many loads. So if there's a lot, we have these extra carts and we just roll them out there and pick them all up. And then we bring them back in and put them into cartons. And then we'll take the cartons are the bigger boxes. And then we'll take them out to the semi. And so it really depends on how much they're dropping off.
I love it. All right, one more for you, Carson. About how many people, churches, businesses, community groups, remember all of these? Don't miss a category now. How many different organizations help with this and individuals?
So many groups, like thousands of people. So we've had individual people bring 100 or so. Individual people bring smaller boxes, which is still great. We've also had businesses in town. They've supported it, and their customers will come and drop off shoe boxes there, and then they'll come and deliver it. And we've had churches and lots of churches.
Lots of churches. And I heard you quoting statistics. Well, before Sabbath school, you were talking about how many counties route their boxes here to go into the semi.
Yeah, so we're the Washington North Central drop-off location. So there's other drop-off locations. There's 5 others. They'll pick up boxes in their area, and then they'll bring them all to us on the last day, and they are to be cartoned, and then we all load them in the semi.
And you said, what, two trailers that went the semi brought?
2 28-foot pup trailers.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, Sophie, what's your favorite part of being involved with Operation Christmas Child?
It's fun to help load the boxes and to just help them pack them.
All right, Carson, what's your favorite part of being involved?
I like taking the big cartons out to the semi, and it's also really nice to know that you're impacting a kid. And it's actually researched that 1 shoebox impacts 7 people.
Wow. So I see a future for you, Carson, that involves statistics. I like how you just pulled that out of your head. Nicely done.
My mom wrote down a list for me.
Good job, Mom. Well, thanks, you two. And I'll take the microphone so you can be free of that burden. I appreciate you guys sharing about Operation Christmas Child. Here's the box. And if you haven't been involved, Christmas is coming. Yep. It's not too early to start planning. I mean, we're counting down, right? We're in June, so we're counting down to Christmas now. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. And I would say, church family, one of the things that makes me excited when we talk about service is that service is one of the things that is almost always intergenerational. Like, it's not hard to find a place for the kids to participate when we're serving. It just it happens naturally, and I love that. So whether it's Journey to Bethlehem, Samaritan's Purse, or some of the other things, it's just easy for kids and younger people and all of us to be doing it together. So where's Pastor Troy? Pastor Troy, would you come up here? Talk to us about The Edge. Such an edgy name from an edgy guy.
Well, I'm going to try to. It really started with a bunch of pastors making a fun challenge. We had a retreat and we did some straws like the Old Testament and sometimes in the New Testament was pulling straws, and we are going to have to do our next sermon on this text. Well, mine was in Leviticus. I got the Leviticus straw. And I know that's not your favorite storytelling book in the Bible, but I did, and I found it in Leviticus 19, verses 9 and 10. There's a law. It's a rule. It's a challenge of God to, when you harvest your crops, leave the edge for the poor and those who are aliens. If you were to just imagine every dwelling that we have right now, that you live in every fence, and every backyard fence in your front had food available for your community, so that anyone who's driving by and say, great, I'd love grapes, or I would love to have an apple or asparagus just growing in the front yard, you would have food. We wouldn't have a food, shortage. So that would be God's plan, actually, to take care of everyone, right? So that's where it started. So I decided to plant a garden, and I have no idea what I'm doing with that. So we got our community about 8 years ago to start this, and we put a garden, and we put a sign and said, this is going to be the edge, and it's for everyone. So, yes, that's how it got started. When I moved here, we were invited by, it was, I think it's Wenatchee Senior Living there on Cherry Street. Big facility, has an assistant living and nursing side of that. They had a big field, and the administrators started coming to our church. And he says, hey, what about this whole garden thing? Could you do that? And we said, we can. So with volunteers and everybody, we basically just started to start a large garden over there on Cherry Street in the backyard. Now, you don't just throw it out there. So we actually had our CCA students seeding plants in the winter time, or started about early March, the end of February. So we have that. And actually we said Walla Walla University students came to a greenhouse over there, and they put in about 1,000 plants in that thing. So they started getting ready for the year. So there's several different parts of the season. But basically, this garden has grown in such a way, over 50 volunteers every year getting involved to this. People can come and pick, they can tend, they can help. And all of that process, there's something else to do. But we'll find people into the field picking and sharing with their friends. So we're not going to fix the food issue with our tomatoes and our celery and our sweet potatoes and all. Sorry, you're getting hungry, aren't you? Well, I started hearing about the soup at Journey to Bethlehem, and I got really distracted because I don't know who does those soups, but it's pretty fabulous. So we started thinking about this. We had several big events, but basically people pick every day. And then we have a couple events. Last year, on this weekend, we basically took all the heirloom tomatoes in August, though, so it was perfect. Now they're just small. But at that time, and we sliced out these big tomatoes. We had beautiful bread, and we had over 50, 60 people come in and get a sandwich and just talk and tell stories. And that's the key of the Edge. It's not fixing the food, it's getting people around with something that has been growing and it resonates with everybody, and they just start to talk again. In our world, we got a little bit disconnected, and we need this kind of a ministry where we'll just start talking and connect with people again. So yeah.
So Troy, you told me a story that your church has probably heard, but the other churches may not have. Tell us about the guy with the food truck, I think it was.
Okay, so I have it was on a Thursday, it was my day to turn on the water. So we have people who are in charge of the water and things like that. I went in there, it was probably about 6 o'clock in the morning to hit the water, and it just goes. And I found a food truck. They're in the parking lot there. And then I looked, and this time his head was popping over these 6-foot, tomato cages and things like that. So I saw him over there, and he was harvesting food for his food truck for revenue. So I think that's brilliant. That's exactly what we did this for. But when I said, hello, he got really nervous, like he was doing something wrong. And I said, the sign right here is for everyone, okay? And I said, the best tomatoes are over here. And I walked him over, and the whole time he's saying, I hope this is okay. And I said, so tell me what's going on, and what are you looking for? Because we got our peppers over there. He says, no, I just want you to let you know that I have this business, and I do okay most of the time, but I got these 3 kids at grades 6, 8, and 9, and they all play athletics. And if you know that, they have to get shoes for everything that they have to do. And he says, at the end of the month, he says, I don't have enough. And it says, when I get some tomatoes and peppers and things like that, it just helps us to make like it even. And I said, this is exactly what this is for. And you know what? God is going to grow more and more tomatoes and peppers and things like that. So keep doing it. And he says, no. He said at the end, at the end of the day, when we have any extra food, like in people who need tacos, the last hour, when we're closing up, the tacos are free for whoever needs those. And he's just having that spirit. And I thought, look, we're not going to feed the homeless by a garden entirely, but we'll find people in transition in those moments. And then you have those stories. I ended up playing in a soccer game with this man. He actually fouled me, but then he said he was sorry, but we had a good laugh. But ultimately, it was a phenomenal thing. It's growing now. We'll do more tomorrow in our service project. We're actually going to plant some more flowers. We have probably about 300 flowers to put into the areas. They keep the bugs away. So flowers to plant. We have some bark to put around, make it really smooth for people to walk on it a little bit better. And then we have extra plants to give away out there. So at the greenhouse, we just emptied out everything. And now it's been over here to share with our community. So, yep.
I love that story in part because it's just such a beautiful example of serving with extreme generosity, right? Like, yes, take these tomatoes and put them in your food truck. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Thank you, Troy. All right, up next, I am looking for Renee again. Renee, would you come back up and talk to us about Doris's place? I think I got it right. Thanks to your, yes, she set me up well.
So I am here in place of Tamara Steffen. The person who deserves the respect for starting this is Tamara. Doris's place is named after her grandmother, whom she cared for at the end of her life when she had dementia. Doris, that is, not Tamara. So she has had this dream, if you will, on her heart for years. And the Lord has been working, and Tamara, as a social worker, got more and more in contact with people who could help. So we are actually kind of part of a franchise of Old Friends Club. It's just the Wenatchee chapter is called Doris's Place. So this is an activity center. We meet every Friday for 4 hours. So it is an activity center for families who are dealing with dementia. It is a respite program so that their loved ones can have a break. We play table games. We start the day with tea time, have a little snack and play some table games. They do a little trivia. They always have an exercise session. They do other movement games. There's always an art project. This last week, Tamara found an app that would take a photo and turn it into a coloring page. So they came in to color a page that was a picture of them. It was darling, and I think that has to be so special for their family members that they took that home too. It just was lovely. I mean, my part is small. I fix lunch. But we have just beautiful volunteers that have had, many of them have lost their loved ones to this disease. So they are kind and they are patient and they just love our members. Our capacity would be 12. We have 8 right now. And we started this in March and have already lost 2 of our members. But that is the reality of the disease. But it is so fun to see them, between our members, building friendships between each other and recognizing us as they come. This is a normal part of their week now. But I think what's really touching, I spoke with one of the wives who was so excited because she had had the opportunity to go to Waterville and visit her cousin and talk to her for 2 hours. And she hadn't done that in 13 years. And so that is why we're doing Doris's Place.
You know, I was just going to ask you, tell us a story about some of these folks, because if you haven't been a caregiver, it's hard to imagine the load and how much time do they get that's theirs each time they drop off a loved one?
4 hours.
4 hours a week or a month? How often do you do this?
A week. We do it every week.
This is transformative for some of these folks,
Yes.
right? Like they get to go on a date.
Yes.
Amazing. Any other stories of people who have dropped off a loved one and shared the impact of having that time?
Unfortunately, I'm in the kitchen. I'm not the one they share those stories
Right.
with. I can tell you, just in observation, that sometimes for their loved ones to get them there is stressful. And they come and you can see the tension in their faces. And sometimes their loved one is grumbling because they didn't want to come or whatever, you know. But by the time they pick them up again, they're smiling again. They're a little more, you can just see it in their shoulders. They're a little bit more relaxed. Their loved one is singing songs and they are relaxed. And so those are the things I see. I'm the wrong person to ask for the stories. I'm sorry.
I love it. Well, I love that you're doing this, meeting a need in the community. How did you guys come to even the idea to say, oh, there's a need, we should see if we could fill it? Where did that start?
Well, Tamara is I believe the term is a geriatric social worker. So she is working with this demographic in our community all the time. There used to be something similar to this at Grace Lutheran Church here in Wenatchee, and they closed it, I think, even before COVID. So there is nothing like this in the Wenatchee Valley, and we serve a lot of people here. So even for us to say our maximum is 12, we are just scratching the surface of what the need is.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. That is an amazing impact, reaching out to a population that a lot of times I don't think we even think about or even know they're around us, perhaps. So I'd like to invite my friend Janetta from Cascade Christian Academy to come up. And she is Minute Lady here today. We were all looking at each other in the back. I'll share a little behind the scenes and saying, so who's got the story from CCA? And there were a lot of blank expressions, and Janetta cheerfully agreed. So here we are, Janetta, again, winging it as we have for decades. It's good to be doing this with you again. Feels like we're back at camp. So tell me.
As long as you don't make me do a skit with you.
Oh, now that you brought it up, okay, all right, not this time. So 8th grade, you're teaching 8th grade at CCA, and you guys are doing some service projects. So I said I'd be nice to you and just let you go wherever you want. So this is your turn.
At Cascade Christian Academy, we have a week called Make a Difference Week every year in October. And the high school typically goes up to Camp Seneca and works up there. The middle school goes wherever in town that I find a project for them. This year they were picking up shrubbery and things at Grace Home, if you know what that is, in East Wenatchee, and helping the people there. And I just had been part of CCA as the resource teacher and have been helping with this week every year. Then when I started 8th grade, I went and asked Stephanie Gates, and I said, I feel like 8th grade should do a little more community service than this. Is it okay with you if I require it for Bible class? So it is a large chunk of their Bible grade, so they are forced to do it. And at the beginning of the year, it often feels forced to them, and you can tell. The first quarter projects, especially my first year, I think about half the class said, oh, I picked up trash for 2 hours. And we chatted about what more meaningful projects they could find. The requirement is to work for 2 hours for someone in the community other than your own family. I remember I had a student that asked if he could just bring his grandfather water anytime he asked. And I said, no, that one doesn't count. You should do that anyway. And then they have to take pictures of themselves doing the project. And then their least favorite part, I believe, is presenting. They have to present to the class and tell them what they did. So, of course, as some students began branching out and doing more than picking up trash, the others saw that, and it's gotten to be very creative. Some students have helped with Operation Christmas Child and Journey to Bethlehem and the Edge and the pantry you have here. I don't know if that's part of the Edge or not. Some have helped with God's Closet at the East Wenatchee Church. Worked at the Humane Society. They've worked for Serve Wenatchee. Here, Caleb is actually working at Teen Pathfinder Mission Adventure. So they've been, through this requirement that I have for them, they have become connected with a lot of other programs. Now, at first, like I said, they work just because it's required. It's 150 points on their Bible grade. It's a big deal if you miss it. But then they start to come back with their stories and how much they loved it, and it's great to see. One girl came back super excited because she still works at the job she got because she went and volunteered at Oakendogs and helped care for the dogs and loved it so much, and they loved her. And, she's long since left 8th grade, but she has a regular job there. But the biggest thing that they learn is just the joy of serving others. And they come up with amazing projects, and I am always just amazed at they are so creative. Kids are always creative, and have come up with, they'll go and play music at the care home, or, they found Special Olympics comes to Wenatchee every winter. I did not know that, but they found that out, and then I had people volunteering there. There was a student this year who volunteered to help with the polar plunge, and did that. It's just so fun when they come back and they quit asking me, like, what did I get on that assignment? What did I get for that grade? They quit caring about that, and they are more excited to tell me instead how much the people smiled, how much they said thank you, and the fact that they're going to go back even when it's not required.
Thank you, Janetta. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I promised, let me look here. I got everybody. We got through all of them. So I do get a few minutes to share a story, and Janetta, you just inspired me, so I'm going to tell a completely different story than I planned to. Have you ever wondered what would be possible if we all pulled together and put all the resources of us together? You ever wondered? Let me tell you a story that I think begins to illustrate what's possible when we pull all of us together and say, let's all point in one direction. Several years ago, Janetta's husband, Jared, was leading out in Teen Pathfinder Mission Adventure, and it was coming to the Palouse, and they were going to be based at Upper Columbia Academy. And so I was helping look for projects. And because we'd begun doing projects in the communities of the Palouse, I'd made friends with my local town clerk, and we'd done a bunch of Pathfinder things in Fairfield. And so I reached out to Cheryl, the clerk in Fairfield, and I said, I've got a group of volunteers coming to the area for spring break, and we need projects. Could you send an email to your counterparts in the other communities here on the Palouse and ask them if they have projects in their communities? And she wrote the most amazing email. It included lines like, if you ever wanted a group of volunteers in your community, this is it. That's part of her email that she sent out. Only one clerk responded. Her name was Eliza, from a little town of Tico, Washington. And some of you have heard me talk about Tico, and you're like, we're done hearing about Tico. But I'm not done talking about Tico because the story's not over, and you'll hear why. Because just Sunday, one more piece fell into place in Tico. So met Eliza, and Eliza says, we have a lady in Tico who she just needs a ton of help in her yard. And so the Pathfinders went down there, and I actually didn't go down to Tico that time. I saw pictures. This woman had a wooden fence that was just falling down along one side of her property. She had Italian prune trees that had grown and grown and grown like they do and just taken over her whole yard. And the Pathfinders went in, teen Pathfinders, and they just went to work, started cleaning it out. They tore down the old fence, they built her a new one, and then they started tearing out the Italian prunes. One day, one of the neighbors, I think it was actually Eliza's husband, stopped by, walked up to Jared, handed him the keys to a skid steer, I think it was a skid steer, and said, bring it back when you're done. And all of a sudden we had power equipment and we could go further faster. Well, the Pathfinders gave this woman an extreme yard makeover that year. And that was the beginning of our interactions in Tico. Then we came up to camp meeting, and our president David said, we want to do some service projects. And so I called Eliza, you got anything in Tico? And we took the youth down. And then the next year we took a whole busload of adults down. And there are pictures in videos that are playing out in the lobby where you're looking across the street at a house that a few years ago you couldn't even see the house until the Seventh-day Adventists showed up and pruned it. And now, ta-da! There it is. And the house next door, guess what? Same thing. Couldn't see it. Now you can. And so we kept going back and back. And then one day I had an idea, and I went to Curtis Anderson, the music voice teacher, choir teacher at UCA, who's also in charge of Hope Task Force. And I said, what would you think of adopting Tico for a year or two? And he says, well, what does that mean? I said, what if we sent a bus load of kids to Tico every time we did Hope Task Force? And he said, I love it. So we set up a meeting with Eliza and the mayor, Roy, and the pastor in the area of the Farmington Church. And we all sat down in town hall, and we're talking about what would it be for UCA to adopt Tico. And finally, at one point, the mayor, who's kind of an old German farmer, he looks at me and looks at us, and he's like, so what are we talking about here? And I said, Mr. Mayor, what if, just imagining, what if 2 years from now, there was not one house in Tico, Washington, that needed paint? And he sat back, he went, okay, I got it. And so we kept talking, and a little bit later, he leaned forward and he points his finger at Mr. Anderson. He says, you brought your musicians to our community years ago, and you did a concert in our theater. And Curtis says, yes, we did. He says, you need to come again. We're like, all right. And so we started talking, when can we do this? Well, we kept going. We started bringing, the bus would roll in 4 times a year. A busload of teens would roll into Tico, Washington. And we started weed whacking here and pruning there and painting over here. Do not take a group of freshmen to paint City Hall. Lessons learned. I spent a lot of time cleaning carpet after the bus left. But they started making a difference, and the people of Tico started noticing. And we just kept showing up and showing up. And then last year at Christmas time, in the Empire Theater, Upper Columbia Academy brought all their small groups and their instrumentalists and their vocalists, and they did a free Christmas concert for the community. After the concert was over, a lady came up to me and introduced herself and said, hi, my name's so-and-so. I'm a council member here in Tico. And I immediately went, oh, because there's been a lot of interesting politics going on while we've been working there. And she said, I did not choose to join the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but I trace my spiritual heritage to Vacation Bible School at the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Farmington, just a few miles down the road. And I thought, wow, amazing. And then last fall, I called down to Tico, just following up on one of our service days down there. And Eliza said, did you see the ad? And I said, what? She said, did you see the ad? The ad in the newspaper, did you see it? I said, I didn't know there was an ad in the newspaper. She said, oh, I'll send you a picture of the ad. She said, Mayor Roy took out an ad in the local newspaper. It's based out of Colfax, if I remember right. Took out an ad in the local newspaper saying thank you to Upper Columbia Academy. He paid for it out of his own wallet. And she sent me a picture, and here's this beautiful black and white ad with the iconic bridge that is kind of the symbol of Tico, and it said, to the students and staff of Upper Columbia Academy, thank you for your, and he goes on to describe their service and the impact that it's making in their community. But it didn't stop there. Last fall, we were going back down to Tico, and again, we're thinking about what's possible if we bring all of us to bear on this. We're going down to Tico with Hope Task Force, and typically the city lines up the projects for us. They send me a list of names, addresses, phone numbers, what they need done. And then I'll go down a few days in advance. I knock on every door, introduce myself, and just say, hey, we're bringing some volunteers here in a few days. Can you show me what you need done? That way, when we show up, we actually have the right tools. And I take pictures, and I send those to the team at the academy so that they come and they're ready to go. And so as I'm going around last fall, going around knocking on doors, I'm realizing, boy, home after home, as they're showing me what they need, they're saying, what I really need, and they point over here or over there, I really need that trash hauled off. Well, when you think about what happens when our finances begin to shrink, one of the things we can't afford sometimes is to haul off garbage, right? And so what do? Piles up. And so people started, person after person, saying, I really need that trash hauled off. And I thought, this is more than a dump trailer worth, which is what we've had in the past. And then there was one home, I knocked on her door and I called her and didn't get any response. And just as I was leaving town, my phone rings and it's this one lady that I hadn't been able to contact. And she said, Richie, what I really need is I need trash hauled off. And I said, how much do you have? She said, it's a lot. She said, I own my home here in Tico, but a few years ago, I left for 2 or 3 years and went to California, and I let family members live in my home, and they were hoarders. And when I came back, my entire basement was full of garbage, and it was all the way up the stairs into the living space upstairs. She said, I've been working for 6 months to get it out of the house and into the garage. I said, well, how much? She said, there's probably 8 pickup loads. I said, okay, we'll take care of it. So I called, the next call I made, I called City Hall because we'd been working together for some time now. And I said, hey, I need to park a dumpster at City Hall on Wednesday morning. Is that all right? Can we do that? And they're like, sure. In fact, we can order it for you. Would you like us to? I said, oh, that'd be great. And they said, do you want a 25-yard dumpster or a 40-yard dumpster? And I almost said 25 yards because it's my budget. And then I thought, nah, let's go 40. At 9:15 or so, just as the bus was rolling in from UCA, the trash company was dropping off a 40-yard dumpster by City Hall in Tico. By 1 o'clock that same day, that trash dumpster was full to the brim. And people who could not, even if they'd had the energy and the physical strength to take care of that trash, they couldn't have afforded to haul it off, because if you haul trash from Tico, you have to drive to Spokane. That's the nearest place. It's about an hour to the dump just to do it. And then you got to pay to dump it. And so we were able to take care of that and help those folks out. And we just did it again here in the last few weeks. Another lady who just had a yard just full of stuff. And the kids rolled in there with staff. And by the time they left at noon, she had a yard that looked beautiful again. So I was down in Tico just last week finishing up that particular lady's job. I had to rent a dump trailer and go grab what was left there. And before I left town, I stopped by City Hall to say hi to the new clerk, and the mayor was sitting there. And as he and I got talking, I said, how are things going? And he was telling me they'd had some flooding recently. And then he looked at me and he said, hey, Richie, how long does the graduation last at UCA on Sunday? And I said, yeah, it's usually done by noon. And he's like, oh, okay. And I said, are you going to come? He said, well, I got an invitation, and I think I'd like to come to graduation. So who knows what God is up to? But last Sunday, the mayor of Tico was at Upper Columbia Academy's graduation. What's possible when we start putting all the pieces together? We put the kids to work. We put the adults to work. We bring everything we have, and we say, let's go out and make a difference. Let's serve our neighbors. When I go around and talk in churches and train and help them talk about what they might do to serve and reach their community, one of the things I say is, you're Seventh-day Adventist. You have access to almost unlimited resources. You own radio stations and television stations. You have 600 or 700 or 800 Pathfinders at your disposal. You have all these resources that are all part of us. And when we bring them together and people look at me and go, wait, the Pathfinders would come to our community? Yes, if you ask them and schedule. When I call up mayors and city leaders around our conference and ask them, what are the needs in your community? I always like to end the interview with this question. And they tell me, they give me good lists, right? Talking to these city leaders and saying from their perspective, what do they see as the needs in the community? But it always ends with this one question that I like to ask them. What is something that you would like done in your community that could be done if 200, 250 volunteers showed up for a day? What is something? And they go, oh. And they usually takes them a moment, and then they come up with some really big dreams. And I'm like, okay, we might be able to do that. One last story, and I'll be done. Happened right here in Wenatchee. Several years ago, we were bringing the Pathfinders to Wenatchee for a Pathfinder fair in the spring. And I was working with one of your members here at the Wenatchee Church, Eric Barber. I said, Eric and Amber, I need some projects so that we can go out and serve. And they started looking around town. And it turned out that the weekend the Pathfinders were here was the weekend that the U.S. Postal Service had their Stamp Out Hunger food drive, right? And so Eric connected me to a lady who was part of the Christian Food Bank here in Wenatchee, and said, call her up. And so I called her up and I said, hey, my name's Richie, I'm with the Pathfinders. And she said, the what? And by that point, I was used to answering that question with community people, right? And I said, we're a group of kids, da-da-da. And I said, we'd love to help. What could we do for you? And there was a pause on the other end of the line, and she said, well, we might be able to use 5 or 10 kids. And I said, wait. I said, tell me what you've got going on. Like, what's happening? What could we do? And then she says, well, we haven't done the food drive for a couple of years because of COVID, but on that weekend, we're doing the food drive, and the last time we did it, it took our volunteers 5 months to sort all the food that came in on that one day. And I said to her, how would you like to have it done by 5 o'clock? And she said, really? I said, if you'll let us, we'll have it done by 5 o'clock. So that afternoon, we arrived, a whole bunch of Pathfinders and staff, way more than should have been fit into that old brick building, I'm sure. And we went up the service elevator to this floor where they were going to be sorting all this food. And it was complete bedlam. The Postal Service drivers would pull up on the curb down below, and they'd start unloading all these bags of groceries, and Pathfinders were down there putting them on scales and weighing them, and then they'd load them onto a flat cart, and they'd roll the flat cart into the elevator would go up 2 or 3 floors, and then it would roll out the door, and instead of starting the sorting where the cart came out of the elevator, it had to go through the whole crowd of kids to the back end, and they're just yelling and screaming and tossing cans and everything else and getting it all sorted. And then it would start to sort its way back. And they wanted us to sort by type and expiration date, I think was what our goal was. They started sorting. The kids were laughing and yelling and just having the time of their lives, and they were moving through it so fast. The lady that was my contact, her boss, the head of the ministry here in Wenatchee, well, he was on vacation because there was a family wedding that weekend. And she called him up. She said, you've got to come see this. He came down that afternoon. I'll never forget. He walks in, and it wasn't just him. He brought his family with him. So here comes the wedding party, up the elevator, out onto the floor, into the middle of this complete pandemonium. And he gets the biggest grin on his face. He literally climbs up on a table, pulls out his phone, and starts to videotape the chaos of all these Pathfinders sorting food. At 5:15 that evening, we locked the doors on their building, and Pathfinders had sorted every donation that had come in, 17,000 pounds of food. What's possible when we put everything we have focused on one target, serving our neighbors with extreme generosity? Upper Columbia Conference has a legacy of service, from ACS to Pathfinders, disaster response, and you folks here in the Wenatchee Valley are living it with gusto and excellence and creativity, and it's so fun to hear the stories of what's happening here. Thanks for being a part of that. And remember, you can continue to be a part of that on Sunday morning when we come back for more service activities. So thanks for being with us for Sabbath School. Pastor Dan, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Do you want me to do or say anything before I exit the stage? I'm going to have prayer because Dan told me to. Father in heaven, thank you so much for these amazing stories. I am energized and excited to hear of the scope, the creativity, the innovation, and the reach of ministry in this valley. God, we pray that you will bless our seed sowing, that you will bless these efforts with connections, that hearts and minds will be opened, that we will be changed as we serve, and that you will bring others into our family because they are so drawn and attracted to the image of you, Jesus, as we serve them. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Yes, we have a short break here, actually a little longer than I thought, but maybe we'll start a little early, but 11 o'clock actually, because we're live streaming, so 11 o'clock we'll gather back in here. And those of you that are able to scoot when you come back from restroom, whatever, scoot towards the middle and leave the aisles open. Obviously, some of you need to be at the aisle, and I get that, so feel free to stay there. But thank you so much for being here this morning. And feel free to check out the booths out there during this break time, and we'll get our worship service started at 11.